If you have a cell phone, you might want to turn it off or set it to stun so it doesn't ring during the service. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, we praise the Judge of Truth. It's a privilege to gather here for the service, for Alexander, for Shurik. And we begin with Psalm 121. The weather outside it's lovely and beautiful, God's creation. Esai enai el haharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha. Al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzircha ad yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yarech balayla. Adonai shmarcha mikol ra. Yishmor et navshecha. Adonai shmar tzircha v'wecha. Me'ata v'ad olam. I lift my eyes to the mountains. From whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian. He is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. He will guard your soul. Your going and your coming, now and forever. And it is a privilege we recite together in the English the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Last night, as we sat at the house and spoke about Shurik, we gathered information and recollections, and Jason will come and speak on behalf of the grandchildren at this point, and please eulogize his grandfather, all of their grandfather.
Okay, one sec. All right. Hello, everyone. We're gathered here today to celebrate the life of my grandfather, Alexander Kilimakher. As I spent time discussing his life with my mom, the most poignant element which stood out to me is just how much turbulence and adversity he dealt with. Adversity that allows me and my family to live better lives. When I think of Deda, I remember his whole life. He was born in 1930 in Bratslav, Ukraine, a few years before the Second World War. His childhood was so far from what my generation can even fathom. Russia, Ukraine, and the surrounding states had been more or less decimated from the previous war, and resources were scarce. There were no smartphones, no Facebook, no convenient technologies that we rely on today. There were just dusty books, religious persecution, and markets scarcely stocked. Just a few years into post-war peace, he was thrust into yet another world war, a war of unspeakable tragedy across the globe, and especially for the Jewish people. As a child, my grandfather was thrown into chaos and suffering. He and his family were forced into a deadly concentration camp. His sister was killed as she was trying to get bread for him and his family in the camp. To continue hoping and surviving in the face of these traumatic events is difficult for me to even imagine. His captivity continued for 4 more years until the war's end. He was just one of a handful of a number of survivors. From then on, he eventually fled and arrived in Odessa, where he was able to begin a semblance of a normal life. He lived with his aunt, went back to school, and took up a factory job in the city. These favorable conditions were unfortunately short-lived, as communism continued to grow across Eastern Europe. Every day, life became more restrictive. Increased religious persecution, scarcely stocked markets, jealous and vindictive neighbors eager to report anyone who stood out. My grandfather realized that this situation wasn't going to work long-term for his family, for the life that he wanted for his family. And he wanted and needed to move to a place where they could thrive, a place that would offer more opportunity and the possibility of true economic freedom and stability. Though knowing little about the U.S. and its culture here, my grandfather put in his application to come to the United States with his wife and children. When he arrived, he had no money, no possessions, no concept of the culture, no job, and suddenly had to find a way to ensure his family was taken care of. There's no way for me to imagine these sequence of stresses that my grandfather had to deal with, but yet he continued to persevere and persist. He encountered and dealt with so many things that no one should ever have to, and yet he found a way to continue moving forward. He found several jobs to pay the bills, learn a foreign language in order to acclimate, and raise 3 children through their adolescence and beyond. Along the way, he also developed chronic conditions such as diabetes and kidney malfunction, which made his life all the more significantly difficult. Amidst all these challenges, however, he never stopped persevering and continued to support his family in any way that he could. His ability to continually persist in the face of challenges is something that will always live in my memory. His strength in the face of unimaginable adversities helps me put my trivial problems into perspective. When I stop to reflect on my own memories with Diada, I think first of all the nights he and Baba would watch me and my cousin build forts and get into the kind of trouble 6-year-old kids do. I think of the ways he would take care of us, picking us up from school, taking us to the doctor's appointments when our parents were at work, and I think of him laughing at all of our holiday dinners, especially as we got older and started drinking vodka. Grandpa loved his family very much, and even though for me the language barrier was sometimes difficult, made it difficult for us to share our lives with words, I always felt he cared for us and loved us through his actions. This loss is difficult to process due to its abrupt nature, but when I look back at everything he dealt with, I'm impressed by my grandfather's tenacity, and I know it'll motivate me to be just as strong in my own life. Thank you, Grandpa, for all your life lessons you've taught me. We will all miss you, and your memory will never be lost, especially with me. I hope that you will be able to rest in peace as you're reunited with Grandma. Thank you again.
And to those words spoken as a prayer, let us say Amen. He loved his family and children and grandchildren, and in addition to what, I'm calling them by their Hebrew names, Jason. In addition to what Eitan said, Sarah indicated that, she had a deep and abiding love for him as well, and a very strong relationship. And before the service, as some of the grandchildren and I were talking, when a grandparent dies, you hope your grandchildren are sad, very sad. It's not always the case, because not every grandparent has a relationship with the grandchildren that elicits tears and strong emotions. And this, in most cases, it did, and it does. May his memory be for a blessing. So we are gathered today, a saddened throng, and we reminisce and we pay our respects to the memory of a dearly departed Shurik Kilimakher. He was a mensch, as they said last night. A mensch is a good, decent person. He was happy. They said he was always happy. And he had an infectious smile. As the family members sat and talked about him last night and they told stories of Shurek, it was a reminder of a fantastic teaching in the Talmud, a favorite. There was a saintly rabbi who constantly pondered the mysteries of what happens after a person breathes his last, what happens beyond the grave. And so one day this rabbi was walking through the town square, someplace probably like Bratslav, a little shtetl in Eastern Europe. And this rabbi is walking through the town square, and he's engrossed in his ponderings, and he comes into direct spiritual communication with Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, the same Elijah from coming for the Passover Seder, the same one who's to bring in the Messianic time. And so as he comes into direct spiritual communication with Elijah, he looks across the town market, and he sees that at the other side of the market, there are some guys, it says, entertaining with their playfulness. Maybe they're juggling, maybe they're doing card tricks or something. It says they're entertaining with their playfulness. And so the rabbi points to these two at the other side of the square and says to Elijah, will these two simple performers share the bliss of the world to come, in the time of the world to come, when they and I have died? And Elijah the prophet says, yes, of course. They will share the bliss of the world to come. And the rabbi says, why? What did these simple performers do? And Elijah the prophet says, they brighten up the hearts of others. You don't have to be some tremendous Torah scholar to share in the world to come, to brighten up the hearts of others by your behavior. That's a gateway into the world to come. And so for your dear Shurek, your dear Alexander, he possesses those merits. Alexander was his given name, although he went by Shurek. And as you know, he was born in Bratislav, Ukraine, a shtetl near the big city of Odessa. As far as we can tell, he was born August 14th, 1930, and he just celebrated his 89th birthday. His parents were Chava and Isaac, and they have both passed away. His mother, Chava, of blessed memory, is buried nearby. When we get to Zion Cemetery, we'll see her grave is nearby. Shurek was the younger of two children, and as Eitan mentioned, his older sister, Yelena, was killed by a guard, hit her with a shovel, and she died. The war years were very, very difficult years. Chava made a vow. She made a promise to God, the family said. Her vow was, if Shurek and she survived the war, she would observe Shabbat, and she would Rosh Hashanah, and observe Yom Kippur and Pesach, and she kept that promise. And it is not without a connection that her dear husband passes away right before Rosh Hashanah. After the war, Shurek did many things, and he was introduced through mutual friends in 1959 to Celia Tamashin. I hope I pronounced that all right. They dated. I don't think you don't want your grandchildren to do this, but they dated for 2 weeks. That was it. They dated for 2 weeks, then they got married. February 29th, 1959. So since it was a leap year, at the time of Celia's funeral, Shurek said, we celebrated on the 28th, since it was just a leap year, the 29th. They were blessed with 56 years, and at the time of Celia's funeral, Shurek said, we never had an argument. Now that doesn't mean we always agreed, but not an argument. She was a hard worker, she was a devoted wife and a grandmother. Many have been the blessings of family. 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. Ala is married to Alex, Yelena married to Bruce, Regina married to Lenny. And the grandchildren, Daniel married to Ivan, Sarah, Jason, David, Erica, Adam. And Daniel and Ivan just had a little boy, Jacob. And there's a lovely, wonderful picture of Shurik holding that little boy. This big, huge smile. Absolutely wonderful. So he got to hold his great-grandson. His great-grandson was born in August. It's a big month for the family. I mean, there are other birthdays and anniversaries. I can't remember them all. But a beautiful, wonderful month. As you know, Shurik and Celia brought the family to Cleveland. They did that June 20th, 1979. And the Jewish Community Federation helped them get settled. The children recalled they were devoted to one another. They took care of one another. Family was his top priority. He loved to get together with family and take care of the grandchildren. Shurik and Celia did everything together. I mean, if you're married for 56 years, that's what you should do. And apparently she always told him where to go driving. She always told Papa where to drive. After she died in 2015, it's been a very tough time for him. And he's had some medical issues as well. And as we mentioned already, but it's hard to mention it too much, big bright spot was the birth of a great-grandson. Although Shurik's health has been a concern, his death it's a little unexpected. It wasn't as if they waited that it was going to happen very, very soon. It was a little unexpected. He'd been on dialysis, but, doing pretty well. So he breathed his last on Wednesday at Hillcrest Hospital, which is the same place that the great-grandson was born, Hillcrest Hospital. So it's a hospital with a lot of mixed emotions, but hopefully many more births. Now for Shurik, there's no pain or there's no deterioration of his body or his mind. There's just rest and wholeness and peace. His soul is returning to God. We talk about Olam Haba, the world to come. It is a time, it's an eternal time, during which God will take care of the souls of our loved ones. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. And one day, we all will go and God will take good care of our souls, hopefully. But certainly Shurik's soul. We're sending along a prayer book for Rosh Hashanah with him in the casket. The family is allowing us to do this just like we did for Celia, because not only is it a mitzvah to lay the body of a loved one to rest, but also to provide respectful burial not only for the body, but for holy books of our tradition. You have memories that are overflowing with thoughts of Shurik, and we give thanks to God for this gift of long life, 89 years. And as you think of him, you should be a good friend. Oh, did anybody keep up with Celia's Napoleon? Nobody's done that? Come on, it was in 2015. It's been 4 years. Someone should make those Napoleons. Oh, well, it's really all about the food. But somebody should do that. All right, in the back row, the grandchildren, and in the second row, the grandchildren. No pressure, but somebody's got to make those Napoleons. When you get married, be a good husband, be a good wife. And as Rosh Hashanah approaches on Sunday night, be a better Jew. Be a better Jew tomorrow than you are today. Be a better Jew this year than you were in the last year. For only through the deeds that we perform can the world be compensated for the loss of this good man. And so we say with tears in our eyes words from the first chapter of the book of Job. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. The Lord hath given, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, yimru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh Shalom, Yahaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May God, who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, cause peace to rain down upon us, upon all Israel, and upon the soul of our dearly departed Alexander Shur Kilimakher. And let us say, Amen. Please rise for the El Malei Rachamim prayer. Into your care, O God, we entrust the spirit of Alexander Kilimakher, of our dear Shurik, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, O God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim U'Tahorim, Kezohar HaRakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Alexander Shurik Kilimakher, Shahalach Le'olamo, Baal Harachamim, Yasdirehu Tepeseta Kanafav Le'olamim, Vayitzroh B'Tzor HaChaim, Et Nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our dear Shurik. He has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. In a moment, we will go in procession to Zion Cemetery, and then the family will be meeting and friends will be meeting at Europa. So if you're not going to the cemetery and you're just meeting at Europa, I think we're at Europa maybe an hour and 15 minutes from now. How long will you be there? This evening? Until, right. We'll be doing services at 7:30, and you'll be at Europa longer than that. But Shurik's name will be on the Kaddish list now for the whole next month. Every Friday night, all the high holy day services, all the Sunday schools, all the Wednesday afternoons, we'll say Kaddish for him. It'll be our privilege to do so. So if you will come in, sir, and we'll go in procession. If you would like to make a donation in Shurik's loving memory to a charity of your choice is fine with the family. We pause now at this funeral home.